Hi, I'm Claire Bond, the gluten-free Avenger, and on today's episode, I am going to be making gluten-free banana buckwheat pancakes. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so what you're gonna do first is you're going to put all of your dry ingredients into a bowl. So you are going to need 1 cup of buckwheat flour. All right, so now you have 1 cup. And then we're going to be adding our baking powder, our salt, and then we're going to be doing 2 tablespoons of sugar. If there's another sweetener that you happen to like better, whether it's maple syrup, because we are in fact doing pancakes, or you like honey, you're more than welcome to do that. I just like sugar, so there you go. What does it say about me? Okay, so now that you have all your dry ingredients, you can kind of whisk them together and make sure that they're all mixed. Then we're going to move over to our wet ingredients, and I'm going to start with the egg. So basically you're going to take your egg, just 1 egg, and then you're just gonna beat it slightly. Definitely don't want any stiff peaks on this. Just slight beating, and then we're going to add the remaining of our wet ingredients. We just have some melted butter here, a cup of milk. I use 1% milk, but again, you can use whatever one you prefer. And then I'm going to be doing 1 teaspoon of, let's see, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And make sure, again, as with the baking powder, just make sure that it says gluten-free on the container, because sometimes they're not, and you definitely don't want to find out the hard way. Okay, so now that you have all this together, mix them up. We're gonna prepare our bananas. So I just have 1 large ripe banana. You don't have to, I wouldn't use an overly ripe banana. I actually, someone that follows me on Twitter, he said not to use ripe bananas because they're actually a carcinogen, or overly ripe bananas. So who knew? So just use a ripe banana. So we don't have to have any carcinogens in our food, because who wants that? Okay, so I use this potato matcher. It's by OXO, however you say it, OXO. It really does a really good job because it's really fine. And then all I'm gonna do, I don't know if you can see this, all I'm gonna do is just kind of mix it, mash it. This isn't the ripest of bananas, so it's not just super soft, but it's pretty soft. And I like to use, if there's another, again, you know, you can use other fruit that you like if you don't like bananas. I happen to like bananas because I like that it makes these pancakes more moist, and I like that. So they're not dry, but it definitely helps to make them a little more moist. So put that aside, and we have our dry ingredients and the wet ingredients that we mixed together, and we're just gonna put them together in here. Oh, and I forgot to mention, with the melted butter, make sure that it's cooled down to room temperature, because you definitely don't wanna make the eggs curdle, because that would be icky. So then you mix it together. I like to use a whisk, just it's a little bit easier. And you can just kind of make sure everything is fully mixed. So now we got our spatula, and I'm just gonna put in that 1 large banana into our mixture, and then push this, put it aside, and then continue to mix it until it's completely mixed. You don't want any flour pockets. And as you can see, the mixture is kind of dark. Don't let that scare you. It'll cook up and it'll taste really good, but it kind of has a strange kind of look. Just so if you're not familiar with buckwheat is an ancient grain, kind of like quinoa. So it kind of, you know, it kind of has a different sensibility. So just, it's gluten-free, it's gonna taste good, Just trust me. And in 2 minutes, I'll be right back, and you can find me over by the stove, and I'll be making up these bad boys. Okay, so here we are at the stove. I've got a pan here. It's a non-stick pan. If you have a griddle, I would set it at 375. If you have a pan like this, I would heat it to medium-high heat. My pan is already preheated, and how I always test it, it's how my mom always did it. You basically put your fingers in some water. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's sizzling, which means it is ready to go. All right, so now what I do is I use a ladle like this. You can always use like a quarter cup if that works for you, just to kind of spoon out the right amount into your pan. So then you're gonna keep it on medium-high heat, and you're just gonna watch it. Basically what you're looking for, you'll kind of see like little bubbles kind of form. You want the top to get a little dry, and you want bubbles to form on the top. That's when you know it's time to turn. You can also take your spatula and just kind of take a look underneath to make sure that it's brown, but that's when you want to turn it. So it's probably about a minute, minute and a half. Another thing that you want to be really careful with is whenever, even if you're making regular pancakes with bananas, you want to make sure that you cook them thoroughly, because there is extra moisture, and some of the batter can kind of get stuck next to the banana. So you just really want to make sure that they're actually thoroughly cooked all the way through. So just take your time when you're dealing with pancakes like this. Don't rush it, because no one wants to bite into doughy pancakes. It's not good. It's not like cookie dough. That's good to eat raw, but pancake dough, not so much. For me, the banana pancakes like this, it just reminds me of my great-grandmother. She used to live in Hawaii, and I used to go visit her as a child, and I loved pancakes, so she decided to make pancakes for me, and she was older, so you know how sometimes older people, they're really into their fiber? Well, she was definitely into their hearty pancakes. So she made the heartiest pancakes I've ever seen in my entire life. And she would mash up a banana in it. And that was a new thing. My mother never used to do that. And they were phenomenal. And she used maple syrup, real maple syrup. And again, my mom didn't use that. So basically Mema kind of taught me how to do banana pancakes with real maple syrup. So this is kind of like a little tribute to her. All right, so we got a lot of nice bubbles forming. The one over here on the right, which is slightly smaller, is looking a little more ready to turn. It's kind of looking a little dry. He's nice and brown. So I'm gonna go ahead and get him ready to turn. Just kind of gently. So I'm using the nonstick pan, so you don't really have to put any spray. I did have the spray, forgot to use it, but it's a nonstick pan, and as you can see, it turned. So, but again, if you want to use nonstick spray, you can. Okay, so this one. Okay, so now we flipped this one. He's looking really good. You're probably going to want to do about a minute, minute and a half on this side, just to make sure they're thoroughly cooked. These pancakes are actually really good. I've given them to my family and friends, and they really actually didn't even know they were gluten-free. They really cook up really nicely. They're not super dense. They don't have that chalky texture that a lot of gluten-free foods have. If you've made gluten-free baked goods and things like that, you probably know what I'm talking about. These, because there is no other kind of flour, it's just really the consistency of the buckwheat, and it's a pretty nice consistency, so you don't have any chalkiness. They bake up, you know, really nicely, and they're nice and thin. They don't get too dense and just, you know when things can be a little hearty. Okay, so let's see. This one looks amazing. So we're gonna take him off. And again, because the flour is dark, they're going to be dark. So don't worry. Because of that too, you can actually burn them and not know it. So do keep an eye on them. Okay, so this one is looking really good. I'm gonna give a few more seconds just to make sure, like I said before, that everything around the banana is cooked, because you don't want anything raw. Okay, so he is done. Now I'm going to do one more set. So So basically this should make about, I don't know, I would say about 8 pancakes. So with each person eating like 2 or 3, because they are pretty hearty, because again, they're that ancient grain that just is very hearty. So I'm gonna continue to cook these up, and when I come back, I will show you what they look like, and I'll take a bite, and I'll be right back. Made my pancakes. It ended up making, like I said, about 8. So I'm gonna take a nice little bite, and I've got my maple syrup here. Put a little maple syrup on that. And let's take a nice little bite. Now if you can see that, just they're thin, not super dense. It tastes really good. Buckwheat definitely has a distinctive flavor, but the banana and the vanilla definitely work very well with it, so it's not too overpowering. I hope you like this recipe. Please leave me a comment and let me know what you think.